Thanks for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast. If you like what you hear today, be sure to like it, follow it, share it with everyone you know, and while you're at it, feel free to give a big fat review. You can also follow the show on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok about upcoming guests. Today, we're brought to you by Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram at Chicopee. Stop by their state-of-the-art dealership next to BJ's and Big Y on Memorial Drive, or stop by MetroJeep.com and make it Metro. And then drive home in your new Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram today.
It's Baxie's Musical Podcast. Resistance is useless.
Recently, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announced their class of inductees for 2026. Among those going into the Hall of Fame include Billy Idol. Now, you may say, so soon? Well, yes, the Hall of Fame finally got out of their own way and allowed this to happen. This, of course, also comes after Netflix released the documentary Billy Idol Should Be Dead back in February. In short, if you happen to be a fan of Billy Idol, or you happen to be Billy Idol himself, then this is a very good time to be Billy Idol. But even Billy Idol will tell you that his success and his newly restored appreciation didn't just happen in a vacuum. In fact, it happened in part because of the people that surrounded him throughout his entire career. And among those that play a significant part in that story are his former bandmates from the band Generation X. Generation X were one of the earliest British punk bands beginning in 1976 and ending in 1981. During that time, they released 3 albums which produced 9 singles. Their classic lineup included not only Billy Idol himself, but also Tony James on bass, Derwood Andrews on guitar, and drummer Mark Laff. After the band broke up and Billy went on to a preposterously successful solo career, the other members went their separate ways as well. Tony James, for example, nearly joined Brian James of the Damned and Stiv Bators of the Dead Boys in Lords of the New Church, writing their single Russian Roulette and several others. In 1982, he formed Sig Sig Sputnik, and in 1990, he joined Andrew Eldritch and the Sisters of Mercy. Derwood Andrews and Mark Laff would go on to enjoy sessions with Sham 69's Jimmy Percy. By mid-1980, both Laff and Andrews formed Empire, an influential 3-piece that unfortunately failed to find much success despite releasing the single Hot Seat in 1981. Mark Laff would go on to form the rockabilly band 20 Flight Rockers in 1986, a band that toured extensively with Flesh for Lulu, Alien Sex Fiend, Lords of the New Church, and several others. This is a band that also includes Danny B. Harvey from the Rockettes, who was on the podcast earlier this year. Interestingly enough, Mark Laff's career has not only taken him through these points in history, he was also an early member of the Subway Sect with Vic Goddard. He was also nearly a member of The Clash, having been called back twice during the audition process. He's also been a part of several Generation X reunions along the way as well, and also played with Johnny Thunders of the New York Dolls and a later version of the Heartbreakers with the late Walter Lure. While it's certainly been a good time to be Billy Idol, it's also been a really good time to be Mark Laff as well, as people rediscover what Generation X were really all about and their importance in history. This is my conversation with former Generation X drummer Mark Laff on Baxie's Musical Podcast.
Mike, how nice to see you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for doing this.
It's lovely to see you. Where are you, by the way?
Springfield, Massachusetts.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, on certain days it is.
Yeah.
It's a real pleasure to have you here. If you don't mind, let's get right into it.
It is for me, Mike. I'm very happy to be doing this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting this is happening now because I just finished watching the Netflix documentary. Billy Idol Should Be Dead, and just a few months later, he's announced he's being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and obviously there's a big resurgence for Billy and it's for Generation X as well. So
for sure.
So would it be fair to say that if it weren't for Mark Laff, there would be no Billy Idol?
Well, that would be doing me a real service, Mike. Hey, listen. Did you enjoy the documentary?
I actually thought it was great. It was really, really interesting, and not just about the troubles he had, but just going into the very beginnings of the band, and where he came from, and the whole Bromley thing. I just thought it was really, really interesting. And as someone who's been doing a music podcast for the last 6 years, and playing his music for the last 40 years on radio, it's just like, Well, there's some interesting stuff that I really didn't know, and I thought it was
Mm,
very, very well done.
good. I haven't seen it yet, and I will watch it upon your recommendations.
Well, I appreciate that, but
To answer your question, Mike, listen, we were all in it together. I think the four members of Generation X that everybody knows and loves were all very, very important. So when one left, it kind of started to dissolve naturally
yeah.
anyway. So yeah. So yeah.
I mean, what do you make of this newfound interest in not just Billy, but particularly about Generation X? I mean, and certainly how it fits into a larger picture for him and for all of you.
Well, well, I'm not going to say ironically, but we're now in the 50th anniversary of punk rock, 1976, which seems crazy. It is crazy, and it's crazy that I'm still drumming and that Billy's still playing and that the other two guys are still strumming along. So I think that music is strong, and that's why it's still remembered and it's still revered. And I think people still take a lot of influence from it. Billy's had an outstanding career. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
I've tried my hardest with my projects, and I know Bob and Tony have done well since Generation X with Siegfried Sputnik, which was a phenomenal success in the UK. I don't know about the US, but it was really big hit there. And Bob had his Westworld project with a couple of hits. So
Sure.
yeah, it was all, we were all very valid. It was a valid thing that we were all doing. So yeah, I was lucky. There's some great players out there, Mike,
Oh yeah.
who never get the chance.
Yeah.
They never knock on the right door. They're always going in the ladies instead of the men's, and they're getting you know what I'm saying?
Sure. And what's interesting is, I mean, you were really just a teenager at the
Yes.
time this was happening. By the time you had joined those guys, how long had you been playing drums?
Wow, that's a fabulous question, Mike, and I should answer it honestly for you. I've been playing drums. See, I lived in a flat. We call them flats in the UK. Condominiums, is it in the States?
Yep.
Yeah. So I didn't actually get to play the drums that were sitting in the corner of the room till I was kind of like 16. I'd had them there for about 3 years, and I'd set them up. Put blankets over them, but it's you know what a hell of a noise a drum kit makes. So I guess 13 was when I started. I was very influenced by a guy I saw on the telly, and that was it. Really, there was no turning back.
It's funny. I was 12 years old when I asked my parents for my first set of drums, and
Wow.
and it was met with utter disappointment and fear. Just the shock and trembling reaction of like, oh my God, this kid wants to play drums. Do you remember what
Yeah.
your parents' reaction was when
They were horrified.
I bet
They were
I bet
horrified.
they were.
They were horrified, especially because of the music that I was listening to that they thought I was going to go on and do. They were heavily influenced by the jazz musicians at the time, all great players, of course. And I'm coming through listening to the Who and Zeppelin and the Beatles, the Stones, all the regular guys who are, the same was you wouldn't want your daughter going out with one of them. So yeah, they were concerned would be a decent word to use.
I think every
They got
parent is.
chased. They got chased down the road by the neighbors once.
Really?
Saying that, yeah, but that was for having the music too loud. So yeah.
Wow. That's funny because I mean, I think back to those years, 76, 77, and I've talked to other people who were around at the time, and it's like there's such fear about punk at the time.
Yeah.
In hindsight, 50 years later, it's kind of funny to even think about the public enemy number one of punk rock to be like the last thing you'd want your kid to get involved in.
Yeah. It's fascinating. And listen, when it hit the streets in 76, it was looked at as very, very dangerous because the attitude that was coming across, the clothes, every aspect of it was new, and people were scared of it. So yeah, I can understand how people, when they look back at it and they think, well, that's not so dangerous. But back in the day, it was, the aliens had just hit town.
And it's coming at a very volatile time in England and around the world. I mean, economically things are terrible, and throughout the UK, people out of work, and here comes punk. And as someone who was in it and caught up in that moment, on one hand, it had to be very exciting, and on the other hand, it's like most people who were in it didn't think it would last more than a day or so.
That's very true. That's the word to use, Mike. Really, it was incredibly exciting. You know, it was for me when I owe everything really to the Clash, because I auditioned for them the same day as Topper, and they asked me to hang around, and I joined one of the groups that was under Bernie's influence. Bernie Rhodes was the Clash manager at Subway Sect, and yeah, it was incredibly exciting. You felt like you were in the Beatles or the Stones, or you know, you were there.
Right.
You were
Right.
there. That's the most important thing. Were you there? That's the, everyone says they were there at the, for the 100 Club Sex Pistols show. Listen, not everybody could get in, Mike.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, 50 years later, when you look back at it, I mean, is the mythology really an accurate representation of the way things were? I mean, I think, people, like you say, the 100 Club, and the show that the Sex Pistols did in Manchester at the Free Trade Halls, like everybody and their brother was there, and that's just not
yeah.
possible. I mean, so is the mythology realistic, or has it kind of been blown out of proportion over the years?
I think it's been, I don't think it's correct in that it's been tampered down, because, as I just said, you had to have been there to see how enormous and exciting it was, you know. So it's got filtered down. Hey, listen, people have got their own opinions of it, and I was lucky enough to be one of those guys that was involved, heavily involved, and in a great group. That was the other thing, you know. I'm very pleased to still be drumming at the age of 67. It's crazy. So yeah.
You mentioned Subway Sect, and
I did.
and here in the States, I don't think a lot of people know much about them. I know that there was kind of like a spotty discography from those guys, and it's a really
Yeah.
weird story about them. What was your experience like playing with Vic and Subway Sect back then?
Well, it was great, really. I mean, just to give you an idea of how crazy it was, we went for the audition for the Clash, I think, on the Tuesday, and I was told on the Friday that I didn't get the job, but could I come in on the Monday? And I was told it might be a guy called Keith Levine that I would be playing with. And I turned up on the Monday, not knowing what to expect. This is at rehearsals where
Right.
the Clash had their offices and rehearsal space. And Bernard said, look, go downstairs and meet the guys, see if you can get on, see what happens, yeah? So we went down there for a couple of hours, and they're nice guys, all really great guys. Vic's a character, very smart, and fun to be with. Paul, Rob as well. And I said, listen, this is good fun, yeah? And they liked it. So I went upstairs to see Bernard, to see what do you reckon? And I said, yeah, let's give it a go. And he said, well, have you got a passport? I said, I don't have it. This is on the Monday. And he said, well, we're leaving for France on the Thursday to go on tour. You're ready for this? He said, go and get your passport. And in those days, you could go to the post office. I think they call it the post office in the States. I can't remember.
They do.
And you could get a paper one, go and get your photo done, stick a paper one in, and that was it. We were off. That's how crazy it was. So I had to learn the songs very quickly. We were straight to France, Rouen, and then Paris, sold out in Paris. It was amazing. For an 18-year-old, you can imagine, Mike, it's your dreams come true, right? And knowing you're not, thinking you're the best drummer in the world, knowing you're not. Suddenly you're from the bedroom, and then you're playing in front of 3,000 people. It was
Amazing.
insane. So yeah, it's very exciting.
So that audition with the Clash is pretty interesting. You got a call back. I mean, it could very easily have gone your way in that audition. What happened through
well,
that?
Mike, I've got an in on this one, because I've been speaking to Topper lately and Terry, and Topper said, because there was a guy called Baker who worked with the Clash, and he was speaking to Topper, and he said, I think you got the gig. He said, but they really like the other guy. So, and that's from Topper. So that's really sweet of him to say that. I mean, he's a different drummer and far more suited to the Clash than I would have been at the time. And, 3 years older than me. So that age difference was obviously very influential. 18, 21. Now, when you get older, that doesn't mean diddly.
But at that age, it's certainly it's a
It's
mile
that
away.
big.
Yeah.
It's a big one, Mike, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a big one. So, yeah. So the audition, there was three of us there. There was a guy there with his girlfriend, which didn't go down well, and then the topper, and then there was me, and yeah, it was mind blowing, really, because yeah, it was fantastic.
So at what point does Generation X start? I mean, obviously you with Subway Sect for a while. The Clash thing doesn't work out. At what point do they reach out to you? You reach out to them? How did that happen?
Well, it's another lovely story, Mike. It's funny, I said a little earlier, you had to be there, you had to be in the right place, you had to know who to go and talk to. So we went on tour, and then we came back to the UK to start the White Riot tour. And to let you know how exciting that was, the previous tour, the Anarchy tour, I think it was only a handful of dates that got happened because they were getting blown out the water. They'd arrive into town, close it down,
Yeah.
So this was the first tour that was going to really happen. So eyes were wide open to see how this was going to go. And of course, the press were all over it. Halfway through the tour, I kind of was checking everything out. And as much as I love the guys in Subway Sect, I knew that I wasn't going to get from it that exhilaration, that atomic bomb music potential that I was after. One of my favorite records is The Who live at Leeds, and it still does
Still
it
a
for
great
me
one,
all
yeah.
these years later. And I wanted something similar to that cacophony, that
Yeah.
explosion. And I'd been listening to a lot of stuff. Mick was very friendly, and still is, no doubt, very friendly with Tony James. And I got to listening to some stuff. Mick Jones lent me a cassette. And halfway through the tour, there was a little break, I think a few days, can't remember why. And we were at a place called Dingwalls, which is a famous, not a nightclub, it was on the circuit in Camden Town. And I got talking to this guy, and he said, "Oh, I'm the manager of Generation X, John Ingham." And he said, "Why don't you come down?" So I said, "Okay, I'll come down." And I think 2 days later, I went down, and yeah, we had a jam, and I went back on the road with the Subway Sect and on the tour. And Tony came to St Albans, I think it was, Tony James, and said, "You've got the gig, ride the tour and keep it under your hat." And because it wasn't kind of cool, really.
Right.
But what you got to take, I was having to think quick, and miss an opportunity, and that's it, you're done. So I took that opportunity, Mike, and finished the tour, and we were off.
Yeah.
We were into rehearsals and trying to make it happen.
Now, correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but at
Go on.
some point, I don't know if it was like probably after you left, Bernie Rhodes wound up firing everybody in that band other than Vic Goddard.
I think that's true to say, Mike. Yeah, Bernie was a great ideas man,
Right.
and he would put you to test. He would make you do things to see if you were worthy of the situation. Some of it was good, some of it was crazy. But yeah, he did fire the band. Yeah, he did fire the band. And it's ironic that I went back to Bernard several years later to ask him to manage a group that I'd put together called 20 Flight Rockers. And yeah, we went through the similar scenario. What can you say?
Yeah.
Bernard, bless. But yeah.
I'll ask you about that in a little bit about that band, but I want to talk about Generation X here for a minute because you start playing together. There's a bunch of singles that get released. You release that first album, which is really really good and very very solid. All of a sudden, you're on top of the pops. All of a sudden, you're getting played everywhere. All of a sudden, Generation X becomes like this really important band at the time. I mean, it seemed like as you joined this, everything is moving at like a hyper speed. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's the sense I got, from reading about the band, seeing the documentary, that it really was like a blink of an eye, and all of a sudden things are really starting to happen for this band.
That's right, Mike. I think initially it was a little delayed in that the record company scene we were looking for the best deal. And I think we were a little late in releasing the first album. But yeah, also producer wise, initially we had a fantastic producer called Phil Wayman who'd done some great stuff. And we all liked Your Generation and Wild Youth, but there was something not quite happening with other material that wanted to get released. So we stopped working with Phil, which is a shame because I really liked working with Phil. He was a drummer as well, and very supportive and helpful, especially to a young guy that's very inexperienced in the studio. And yeah, so it got delayed because we were hanging around looking for the right guy, and we ended up working with Martin Russian, which was great. He'd done Stranglers, he'd done 99, he'd done a lot of stuff, and he was tried and tested, and he was the fifth guy in the room kind of vibe, you know. Everything's cool, let's just play. It's gonna happen, which is what you want. There was no pressure of like, you got to make this a hit record, you know. So we went and did Ready Steady Go and that first album with him, and Ready Steady Go wasn't the hit that it should have been. It's a much better song than it's ever credited for in terms of placings back in the day. It's a really great song, great lyrics. The whole thing is great. And so we did that album with Martin. And yeah, it became a household name quite quickly. Most of it, we had a TV show in the UK called Top of the Pops, which was like the big show. It was the 7 o'clock sit down on a Thursday night, and suddenly you were there, Mike, playing the drum. And it's crazy stuff, you know.
That experience of being on Top of the Pops, you know, when I've talked to other people that have done it, they all say that it's like, you know, life changes almost immediately. And, you know, I mean, here's a band. I mean, obviously you're lip syncing, you're not actually playing the drums, and you got a guy like Billy fronting your band. It's like, you know, talk about like a perfect storm of all these things that are happening. It's almost as if this band were like meant to be seen by the whole country.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair to say. I mean, listen, we can't take away from the fact that Chrysalis Records, which is the record company, making it happen. Yeah, making it happen. So movers and shakers for sure, and they did their very, very best, and we actually got a good deal out of them. Spent it quickly. But yeah, so Chrysalis Records hugely influential.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to say these days. So yeah, overnight sensation, maybe not, but pretty close, really. Once the hits started to happen with King Rocker and Valley the Dolls, yeah, it was going well for a little while.
For a little while. And I want to ask you about that too, because I realized that like in any band, any group of people working together, there's always parts that are difficult and things start to fracture. And certainly it seemed as though that was happening with Generation X. What was the reason that you left the band?
Well, the story really is that Bob Andrews, the guitar player, otherwise known as Durwood, was becoming very frustrated at the lack of acknowledgement with regards to songwriting, and not just the that side of things, but also on a personal level. The band was, I've said it before, polarized in that Billy and Tony, and it's no disrespect to any class system, they came from middle class families. Bob and I were working class, so he and I roomed together, and Billy and Tony roomed together. So we were divided on that aspect as well. But Bob was putting in a lot of work, an awful lot of work. A lot of that music is down to him. Billy's a great songwriter. A lot of people used to think that Billy wrote the words. Billy did write occasional words, but Tony wrote the words. Billy would come in with ideas for music, and we'd go, yeah, this is great. Let's do this, let's do that. And it would happen, you know. And Bob was a great translator. Fantastic. I can't blow his trumpet enough, because at 17 and 18, probably the hottest guitarist in town at the time for a new up and coming guy. Unbelievable. How lucky am I to be in that group with this guy, yeah, and Billy and Tony, you know. So it was a situation where Bob thought, he's a quiet guy anyway, and reserve would be a polite way of putting it, but he was backing away all the time.
Sure.
So rehearsals started to become tense. The translation was still happening, but it wasn't in a very congenial way. Other things were influencing the situation. Friends from each section, he said this. Yeah, all of that. The girlfriend said this. Oh man, you know what it's like, Mike.
Sure.
So basically, Bob Andrews left the band and was persuaded to come back for a Japanese tour. And we did that tour, and it pretty much he decided that it was not going to happen anymore, that nothing was going to get better. And which is the real shame to see this, to actually watch this happening. Because I think Billy and Tony realized that Bob was an absolute diamond.
Yeah.
Yeah. But their failure to communicate in a way to keep it together was not there. So Bob had gone, and the writing was on the wall for me, to be fair, because we were already transitioning from a style of music, a third style of music, if you will. We'd gone from the crazy stuff that I wanted to do on the first album to a more streamed down thing, a more thoughtful process of arrangements, really good arrangements, by the way. The band worked really, for us to do those songs like that was fantastic. And now we were going into an even more streamlined style of music,
Almost like a more of a pop sound almost.
Yeah, but also arrangement wise, we were making it a lot more simple. I was talking to my mate Adam the other day, and he was saying, the third Generation X album, Gen X album, is really more the first Billy Idol solo album than it is a Generation X album. And I think that's very true. So we've gone through 3 really big changes. And so I kind of, I wasn't asked to leave, but I knew it was done. Nobody said, and I think I ran into him at Chrysler, and I shouldn't have run into him. Walked in on a meeting, and I just thought, well, that's that. And yeah, I spoke to Tony, said, listen, that's it, case sera.
So you and Bob, after all this, you form Empire, and which didn't last very long, but it was a pretty influential trio. Maybe not commercially successful, but it did have a lot of influence on a lot of other people.
It did. I'm so proud of that. Really, Bob had worked really hard on that material. We all worked really hard on that material, and Mike, we couldn't get arrested. We could not get arrested. The scene had changed. Punk in 1980, it was New Romantics coming through. And we did get that released through a tiny little independent record. How that record traveled the world, I don't know, but it did.
Yeah.
Obviously because of Bob and maybe myself. But yeah, it's still, people still talk about that. I would love to do that with Bob again. That would be amazing, because we didn't really do much with that.
Yeah.
We didn't, we were around for about 3 years before Bob said, enough's enough, and he wanted to take that group into a different direction.
Yeah, I was listening to it the other day, preparing for our interview. And I'm thinking,
how did it sound?
I actually really liked it a lot. It's like, even though it's you're talking years later, it's like, why was this not bigger? This is a lot. There's a lot of really cool stuff in this record.
Mike, I tell you what, the 6-track demos are incredible.
Yeah,
I've got to find them, and I'll try and send them to you.
That would be great. That would be fantastic.
Yeah. It was unmanaged. There was no manager for that situation. The record company was tiny. They were running out of somebody's kitchen, really. And there was no money behind it. Chrysler had wiped their hands of Bob and myself. So there was no regular income, if you will. So we were starting from scratch all over again. And as much as it was a pleasure to be doing what we really wanted to do and not be influenced by the stuff that we felt we shouldn't be involved in, it just, I don't know, it wasn't going to happen. So it's there for history to tell its tale and be remembered for what it was. And Yeah.
Yeah.
If you were there, maybe you saw it.
You had mentioned 20 Flight Rockers in
Ooh,
1985. It's funny that you brought it up because I interviewed Danny Harvey earlier in the year.
wow. How is he?
Awesome. Fantastic. Uh,
Good guitar player.
Hell of a guitar player. And
Yeah.
it's interesting because it is so different than everything else that you had done. It's essentially a rockabilly band. And I heard a little bit of the album
Yeah.
Ride, and it's something that you recorded but didn't get released until a number of years later. And I think it was, if I'm getting this right, it was due to like a shakeup between the record company Epic and Sony. What was it that happened there?
Oh man, Mike, this is a story. Listen, I have nothing to do with that Ride album.
Okay.
Nothing to do with it. So that's after me. So basically, I mean, 25 Rockers. The story for me is 25 Rockers. I was in a situation where I possibly was just going to take a break from drumming and do some acting, as I wanted to try it. And a very good friend, bass player, said, "No, you're not. We're going to put a band together." And we became very brotherly. It was an incredible situation to find myself with this guy who really liked the same sort of stuff as me. And we met Gary, found a guitar player in Ian McKean who was just like, wow, I'm blessed again. Here's Jimmy Page walking through the door. Really, honestly, Ian McKean is just one hell of a guitar player. And we started off with a little independent record. I'm sorry to digress here. I'll just give
Go
you
right
a quick
ahead.
rundown how it all happened. And we were gigging a lot, really enjoying it. Jeff, the bass player, came in and just made it like kind of like how you think the Ramones are,
Mm.
all living in one room and having a great time. I don't know, does that the Ramones thing? Maybe not. But yeah, so we were doing some great shows. We were selling out a lot of the big London marketplaces, and it was happening in a great way. That we were looking good, sounding good. We were late in the day once again signing to a major, so we got signed to Warner's, and by Bill Drummond of
Mm.
KLF fame.
Yeah.
Does that name ring a bell?
Yes,
KLF?
it does. Yes.
Sorry. And he loved us. We had a plan, and then Bill left.
Mm.
And then what happens when the A&R guy leaves? We're on that shelf right up there, and we ain't coming down for a long, long time. So that's when I met Bernard again. We were out at Coco's, Camden Town, or whatever it's called, and I saw Bernard. And this is one of Bernard's deals, right? So I've gone over and said, Bernard, look, over there's my band. And we were looking good, Mike. We were
Sure.
looking good. It looked a bit like the Clash, if I don't mind me saying. And he eyed them up. He went, oh, okay. And this is like early in the week. And he said, I'll give you a call at 10 o'clock Friday night or not. So this is a task of Bernard, you see. It's going to ruin your Friday night. And he might not even call. But true to his word, he called and he said, I want to meet you at 2 o'clock tonight.
Okay.
In this ice cream parlor in Swiss Cottage. So it's a whole process with Bernard. Like, if you're worthy of the situation, you'll manage to get there. Okay, there's no buses, there's no cars, So it's a taxi down to Swiss Cottage and a little lighter in the pocket afterwards. And yeah, he took the situation on. He went to Warner's and they said, look, we're not going to get behind the band. The only person in the band that we really like is the guitar player, which is fair enough. Ian was the music, just as Bob was the music for Generation X. And I don't mean to dampen Billy's thing there. Billy was coming in with the ideas. Fantastic songwriter, really
Right.
good, as we all know. And yeah, so Warner's released us, and but it went to this. I was disappointed in that we all made a decision, tragically, to have to say we were going to lose Ian, which was madness. Absolutely madness. Bernard said the only guy they like in the band is the guitar player. We're going to fire him, and then they'll let us go. So it's it's insane, isn't it? It's insane. How can you let the best, And so I was devastated at this. The other guys went to Los Angeles, to Epic Records. I think it was Epic Records, and I couldn't go. I was devastated. I did something else in the entertainment industry for a while. I became 50% of a male and female double act, Mike.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, which was interesting. There's a whole movie in that, probably a series of movies. I won't bore people. It's very funny stuff and very interesting. But I did eventually go to Los Angeles, and we were going to cut an album with really great engineers. The engineer on Prince's Purple Rain, he was producing it, but things didn't work out. I wasn't happy. The mood in the group had gone. Everybody was listening. In Los Angeles, you know the score, Mike. If you haven't got a car, you haven't got money, you ain't going nowhere.
It also sounds like a pretty typical story where between record companies and management, I mean, they find a way to beat the shit out of you one way or another, and it does sound like that's what happened in that situation.
Yeah, very much so, Mike. So I did 2 months in Los Angeles, and it wasn't happening for me.
Yeah.
And I was frayed by then. I was frayed. Uh, Things had taken their toll on me emotionally and physically, and I know I had to get out quickly. So I'd become very good friends with this checkout girl, and she drove me to the airport. Bless her. I'm still in touch with her to this day.
Oh, good.
Elsa Rand. Elsa, I love you, baby. You saved my life. So that was it. Yeah, 20 Flight Rockers was done, and it was a difficult recovery process.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're kind of into 1988. Is that, yeah, 1988, 89 there? And yeah, that's where I was at the end of that.
A couple of years later, there's talk of a reunion of Generation X. This would have been like
Yes, there
around
was.
92, 93, somewhere around that.
Exact amount, Mike. Yeah, that's right.
When How did that discussion happen? I mean, you guys hadn't played together in years, and like you said, you'd kind of been through, a rough patch after the 20 Flight Rockers, and some of those other things. But how did that discussion about a reunion even happen?
Billy got in touch um, through his management and said, "Would you like to do a show?" And I was interested. I was still playing great, still enjoying it. And hey, listen, I didn't have any problem with it at all. I,
Yeah.
I don't think any of us did. I don't think Billy was in his greatest shape at the time. I think he was suffering a bit, as probably pointed out in that documentary you just mentioned. Um, but he gave it his all, as far as I could tell. So we did a week's rehearsal. We did the show at the London Astoria. Sadly, no longer there, Mike. Everything's closing down in that place.
Yeah.
And I played quite good that night. I didn't do bad. And yeah, so there was talk and possibly, and everyone was hanging around, and then nothing.
Hmm.
So I can't remember what album Billy was on at the time. Was it Cyberpunk? I can't remember. But yeah, nothing transpired from that, Mike, unfortunately. So yeah, it was I think 8 songs we did at the tail end of a Billy Idol show, and it was good fun. Yeah.
It had to be. I mean, after all that time had passed, and Billy had his his ups and downs, and Tony too, for that matter. I mean, 6 Sputnik was a pretty interesting patch for him too. But I mean, to get back together with those guys, even if it was just for like one night, 8 songs, there had to be
Yeah.
something kind of interesting about going back to all of that and reliving it.
It was fantastic. I think what was going through everybody's mind at the time, certainly mine, was that we all realized that Generation X was a great group.
Yeah.
On its day, it was a really great rock and roll group, Mike. We kicked some ass. And there'd be bad days. Hey, listen, Led Zeppelin had bad days. Who doesn't have a bad day? You've got to have a bad day to know what a good day is, right? So, exactly. So, we all knew that if we could turn it on, turn it to 11.
Yep.
Yeah. Not necessary to 11, but 10 and a half. It could happen. And yeah, we did a week's rehearsal, and it was exciting. It was really, yeah, we could do this again. Bob flew over. Bob was living in the States at the time, Bob Andrews. I was in London, Tony was in London, but yeah, it was on the cards, but the cards didn't. Yeah,
Yeah. There
didn't
was
happen.
there was another thing that I wanted to ask you about because when I read it, my head
Yeah.
spun around because I thought this was just like the coolest thing. You playing with Walter Lure and the Heartbreakers in
Yeah.
2019. To this day, I think LAMF is one of the greatest rock and roll albums ever recorded. Even if it was recorded badly at the time, it's still such a great
Sure.
record. Tell me about how that happened. I mean, how did you? I mean, did you know Walter before this, or
Well, this is another story I love because Tony James was asked by Johnny Thunders to remix the LAMF album in around about mid 80s, 84, I think, something like that. And so I got to meet John, and he said, "Look, I need a drummer to do some shows in France. Would you like to do it?" And we went over to Tony's flat, and I played drums for about 5 minutes, and John said, "Yeah, that'll do." And then we were off to France. Listen, I'm blessed with great guitar players. So
Sure.
also my history. I can't believe it. And Johnny Thunders doesn't get, because of John's behavior, his likes and dislikes, bless him, rest in peace. Lovely man. He was always so sweet to me.
Yeah,
Very well dressed as well.
of
Very
course.
well dressed man. Good looking guy. Great guitar player. Great guitar. I'll tell you a story, Mike. First show, we'd had a 5-minute rehearsal. Maybe it was 10 minutes with some talking. And I was given the numbers to learn. So we're in this place south of France. I think it's called Dax. I can't remember. I should know that. I live in France. I don't know it. But I think it's called Dax. And so the dressing room is a mezzanine at the back of the hall. So we've got to climb downstairs, go through the audience to get on the stage. I'm behind John. We're walking through the audience. He stops. He goes, "Hey, Mark, do you know Wipeout?" And I went, "I do." Johnny said, "Let's open with that." So just to fuck with everyone, yeah. Excuse my French.
Quite all right.
Just to mess with everybody. So we're opening with Wipeout, and that was John all over. And John used to like enjoying himself,
Of course.
He'd like a drink, and he'd like a lot of exotic substances. And we'd do certain songs maybe 3-4 times a night. He'd forgotten we'd done that one. So, and he changed the title, which was nice, I think one song was called Duck Soup at one point, the Marx Brothers movie. But John was fantastic. So I got to play with John several times, which was really exciting. He had a fabulous manager called Christopher as well, who was looking after him. And listen, when John plugged in to those Fender Twins, wow, it was breathtaking. It was like the devil had walked into the room. It was phenomenal. The sound of this guitar was fantastic. Really so exciting. Which is what you want, isn't it? Yeah.
It's what you would hope from him.
Exactly. So it was never going to be Earth, Wind and Fire, Mike. Well, maybe it was in a strange sort of way. But so I played with John, and all these years later, Mick Rossi from Slaughter and the Dogs was hanging out with Walter, and he gave me a call and said, "Would you like to do a small UK tour?" And we did, yeah. There was a bass player called Nigel Mead, and I'd really wanted to play with Nigel because he's a great bass player, and it wasn't a problem. So yeah, we slung ourselves around the UK for a week or so. The last show was fantastic. Sold out Saturday night, sold out at the 100 Club, and we played great. It's just what you want. How nice to leave it at that. And then sadly, shortly after, Walter passed. So.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, that's like one of my favorite rock and roll records, LAMF. There's something about it that is, so, it's like, I always said, the Heartbreakers were kind of like the Rolling Stones if the Rolling Stones had terrible drug problems.
Listen, I'm a big New York Dolls fan.
Sure.
So this was a pleasure for me to play those songs.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
I love Jerry Nolan's drumming.
Yeah.
And that first New York Dolls album produced by Todd Rundgren, great record.
Yeah.
Listen, that hugely influential in the punk rock scene were the New York Dolls. So it was a very easy slip in for the Heartbreakers to turn up, you know.
Yeah.
They could have been frowned upon with the clothes and the hair and maybe the wrong attitude, but they slipped in nice and easy to the punk rock thing because of the attitude. The attitude was the most important thing.
100%.
Exactly. Listen, to answer your question, Walter's lovely guy, and I remember seeing him so many times back in the day, and yeah, it was lucky to do it.
Yeah.
Lucky to do it. They're all gone now, so bless them.
Funny, I remember reading the obituaries of Walter when he died, and they're all saying, "Oh, he was I think he's doing like an accountant or something." I like it seemed like the oddest career career switch from a guy who was in the Heartbreakers with Johnny Thunders to all of a sudden now he's an accountant somewhere. Fantastic.
I know. I think it was to save his life, though.
Yeah.
You know, because I think he knew where that road was going,
Yeah.
and unless he went in the other direction, he wasn't going to make it. So yeah, fair dues. I think he ended up on Wall Street or somewhere.
Yeah, right.
Doing some of that stocks and shares or whatever. I don't know. The same was way as Arthur, you know, from the Dolls. He went into some kind of religious place, was it? I don't know.
Yeah, I believe he was very involved in the Mormon Church for years and years, and that turned his life around too.
Yeah, as it would.
Yeah, of course. You mentioned that you're still playing.
Yeah.
What are you doing these days?
Well, 2019 is when we went out with Walter, and I just wanted to see how I felt about going out and playing live again, because as we all know, the music business has changed so much now, and it's a different kettle of fish, if that translates. So I really enjoyed it. I got a great reception. People were saying to me, "Come on, you know, why aren't you doing it?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, okay." So I got in touch with Bob Andrews, who lives in the Joshua Tree, third one on the right. And you'll have to forgive the humor here, Mike. You know, I'm tired, and
I understand.
Good. And we were going to do Empire again. It was so exciting. On a plane, I went to LA. I drove out to see him, stayed with him, and it was really good. And at the same time, Gary Twin, 25 Rockers singer, was in Los Angeles, and I hooked up with Gary. But Gary was busy he wasn't doing music really. He was in another business. And so 2020 happened, and the world changed.
Yeah.
And we were going to do the album old school, like get in the recording studio. There's a very famous recording studio just down the road from where Bob lives in the desert, where Queens of the Stone Age and Eagles of Death Metal, that studio. And it was looking really good. And then the flights got cancelled. I was looking at doing the drums separately over in France, here in France. And it just wasn't happening how I wanted it to happen. So it just fell apart for the duration of that whole period of life-changing events, you know? So, yeah. So coming up later now, about 3 years ago, I started to talk to Gary more and Ian more. And we said, well, look, when the time's right, we will do it. Jeff will do it. And we will do 25 Rockers. But I was sad in one respect that I thought we got the 50th anniversary of punk rock coming up, and there's going to be no Generation X. You know, those songs are great.
Yeah,
those are really great. So I thought, well, hell, I'm going to have to do it on my own and see what happens. So last year we put some people together and did a road test, and we did the 100 Club, which I sold it out, Mike. I sold it out.
That's great.
And people loved it. I thought, well, yeah, okay, let's put the lineup together that's really gonna please people, make it feel like they're watching Generation X as opposed to, yeah. So Yeah, that's what I've been busy doing the beginning of the year, where I'm in between rehearsals now. I go to rehearsals the week after next in London, and we're off again. So we're going to get it tight. We're going to be doing the 100 Club in September. And 25 Rockers have this year been recording. So we're going to do an album. We're playing live early next year. We want to do some shows. We would like to do some shows in the States, but it's difficult these days, obviously on a financial level with promoters,
Right.
and 25 Rockers is a little of an unknown quantity in the States, unfortunately. So we'll see what we can do and get the press going over in the UK. And so that's going to happen next year. But X Generation X with the new lineup, I'm really excited about, because I'm working with a really cool guy who's got a lot of support for me, and yeah, I'm ready to go again.
That's
So
great.
at 60, I'll be 68 by then. So it's amazing to still be playing this material. Listen, Mike, it's not easy stuff to play.
No, I know it's not. It's pretty fast.
I don't envy Marky Ramone, but listen, when I listen back to my stuff, it's just like, wow, you know. But there you go. It's exciting to play those songs, and people really enjoyed them last year. And it's an emotional thing as well, you know.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, going back for that amount of time, 50 years later, and doing it was bizarre. But the next time it will be even more exciting. So yeah.
Mark, this has been great. I've really enjoyed talking to you about all of this
You've
stuff.
been
It's
a pleasure to speak to, Mike.
Oh, I'd love to have you back sometime, especially if you wind up coming to the States. That'd be great.
Well, I would love to. We'll see what we can do. I'm talking to an Canadian promoter, so we might hit Canada first before we get down to America.
I won't take that personally.
No, don't. So we're definitely going to do Canada and then drop down. I'm sure we will. So yeah, I'm sure there'll be some interest. Liz, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for listening to my stories. They're all true. I don't make them up. I don't need to. Other people were there. So look, take it easy, brother, and we'll see each other soon, I hope.
I hope so. Mark, this has been great. Have a great day. I appreciate the time today.
I hope it was good. Mike.
It was wonderful.
Have a great day.
All right.
Thank you.
You too.
See you soon, brother.
The name of the Netflix documentary is called Billy Idol Should Be Dead. It is really, really good. And be sure to keep your eyes out for when Mark Laff and his band finally get back to the States. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can reach me at bax@rock102.com. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks to Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram at Chicopee for their support. But most of all, thanks to you for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast.